Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Debbie Lynn Grace. Debbie is a transformational leader, 30-year marketing and business growth expert, an international speaker, energy worker, and intuitive. She's also a contributing author to 5 other business and personal development books, besides being the author of Outrageous Business Growth. She's also a publisher of Sensitive Living magazine, a life essentials magazine for highly sensitive people. Debbie helps transformation-based entrepreneurs with big visions turn their power into big revenue streams with purpose. Her online business and transformational programs, live events, and speaking engagements have impacted hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. Today's conversation is one I know will resonate deeply, especially if you've ever felt like you're too sensitive or you've struggled to make sense of the intense way you experience the world. I'm joined by the incredible Debbie Lynn Grace, intuitive energy expert and founder of Sensitive Living magazine. Debbie brings decades of experience helping highly sensitive people not just navigate life, but thrive in it. In this episode, we're talking about sensitivity and also exploring what it really means to live a high vibration life, how to stop operating from fear and ego, and if you're healing from betrayal or feeling stuck in any area of life, this conversation will help you access the inner guidance and higher frequency that's already available to you, waiting to be activated. Let's dive in. Okay, everybody, we are here with my new friend, Debbie Lynn Grace today. And she's my new friend because we met. And you know, when you just meet someone and you're like, I just want to be friends with that person. That's what happened. And she has this incredible magazine for highly sensitives, which I am. And she's going to talk more about it. But today we're talking about high vibrational living. So with that, welcome, Debbie.
Thanks. It's going to be weird, right? Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. Should be interesting.
Absolutely. And before we even get started, let's really start. Let's start with just the highly sensitive piece. I want to get into high vibrational living, but let's just, for those who aren't familiar with, what is a highly sensitive person? What are they like? What do they do? What do they need?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the science behind it and the reason the term was coined is there's a piece in your brain that whatever that operates that kind of takes in external stimuli and how you react to it. Well, for somebody that's not highly sensitive, in layman's terms or in practical terms, I say they have a shock absorber system. And somebody that is highly sensitive has no shock absorber system when it comes to taking in external stimuli and how you react to that stimuli through your 5 senses. So if you have no shock absorber system, that means somebody that's highly sensitive, it means that light's going to seem brighter, noise is going to seem louder, right? Your senses become more acute.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the challenge of it. Now, because of that, you know how when somebody has a challenge in one area, they almost overcompensate in another area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if your arm is hurting on your right side, you end up using your left side a lot more, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so with highly sensitive people, the challenge in many ways becomes the gift because we are so sensitive to our surroundings and what's happening around us. We also, the gift of it is we become more in tuned, like highly attuned to what's happening that the person that's not highly sensitive is probably not noticing at all.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So, yeah, so you end up developing, first of all, your intuitive sense is heightened. Even though everybody's got intuition, right? But for the highly sensitive person, the gift is that their intuition, because they're always aware, more heightened awareness of what's happening in their surroundings. So that's the gift of it. They also, most highly sensitive people are empathic. So the challenge is feel other people's pain is we are the healers. We don't want anybody to be in pain, right? So you look at anybody that does your line of work, my line of work, a doctor, a coach, a consultant, a speaker, most of the people that are in the service industry, especially when it comes to transformation,
Mhm.
they don't want, we're the ones that are going to heal the world. Oh, or we are healing the world. That's the bottom line. So that's, it's just been in real practical terms. It has to do with how you take in external stimuli.
I
But
love
it
that.
affects everything you do.
Yeah, and you know what? I do see it as it is that blessing and that curse. It's almost like I look at it like some people have more bubble wrap around them, and highly
Yeah,
sensitives have no bubble wrap. So there's
right.
no protection, so it goes right in. And I really feel like that's been one of my secret ingredients as to why I've been I can coach the way I do. It's because of that intuition, and because I think highly sensitives hear what's not being said, right? And
Absolutely.
they're reading between the lines, and they're just getting that fuller, more, bigger picture about what's going on.
Yeah,
And I think it's actually been a real advantage. And it's interesting because I'm very interested in human design. I've done on the show that, I'm credentialed in it. I test people for it. And there's
right.
actually a gate, one of the parts of human design, I believe it's the gate 19, which is the one that tells you are a highly sensitive person. Sure enough, I have it.
Oh,
So it's a real thing. And so you have this beautiful magazine, and we're going to link to it in the show notes. And I am blessed and honored to be on the cover
on the cover,
of
front and center.
this next
Yeah,
issue. So it's just, if you are a highly sensitive, and if you don't know it, you know it by how maybe reactive you are when something happens, and other people are like, what's the big deal? And it is a big deal, for us, right? Like I was always the one, just escorting the bug out of the room instead of killing it, or grabbing the lunchroom monitor because the bully was acting up, and other people are like, what's the big deal? Well, it is a big deal. So if you're highly sensitive, I'm looking at it like it is a blessing. Okay.
It is
So
100% of a blessing. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I can't, if you took away my sensitivity, you'd have to take away my work. I mean, I can't fathom. I look at it this way, is that the universe chose a select percentage of people in the world, throughout the world, to be highly sensitive. And if you looked at those percentage of people that have gone, what they've done with their life,
Mhm.
and how they're the healers, in whatever form that healing takes, what would our world be like
Yeah.
if we didn't have that level of sensitivity, that level of compassion, that level of generosity, that level of heart? Like, this is not a world I'd want to live in. So, yay, us.
Yay. And here's the thing too. It's a challenge when we're younger if we don't know we're highly sensitive, because
Right.
like I was
Yes.
always, told, oh, you're making such a big deal. Oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, what's the
Yep.
big deal? And we
Yeah.
think we're crazy. Like, what? Here's an example. I remember, because I'm bi-coastal between New York and San Diego, and I was like, why is it that I can go into New York City? I feel like it takes 3 days to shake it off, that energy. And I always thought, what's the matter with me? Why can't I just do that like everybody else? I had no idea I was highly sensitive. And I think
Yeah.
this would be such a benefit for kids to know early on, because I think we don't know
Absolutely.
until we get sort of crashed on the head in some way. And it would be it's a real disservice, because if we knew this earlier, we could use it as our superpower and not think there's
Yeah.
something wrong with us, for sure.
And that's why I created the magazine,
Yeah.
is to give highly sensitive people the tools from experts who are serving highly sensitive people, that they can be able to really thrive with the gift of being sensitive, and all these experts help them with the challenges of it. And we're a community, right? And it's not something that you talk about with somebody that's not highly sensitive.
Yeah.
They would just sort of look at you because they can't relate at all, right?
They don't get it. They
Right?
just don't.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So, in the world of betrayal and healing from betrayal, first of all, helpful to know if we are highly sensitive or not, because it's going to hit
for
us
sure.
harder. Not that betrayal is ever easy on anyone, but it's going to be especially painful for the highly sensitive, because we feel everything and feel it so deeply. But there's, it's all about, so much of this is about vibration and about energy and all of that. And that's really why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because you teach something that is so unique and so different. And, we all hear about, oh, change your vibration and whatever. But there was something about, we had a conversation recently, and I was so intrigued at how you teach vibration and energy. Can you share, tell us about that?
Tell us about our 30 years
Yeah.
of work
Sum up
and
your 30 years.
right, in 30 seconds or less. Well, let me try and do this as an illustration on the screen. Okay. So everybody is operating their day-to-day life in a vibrational range. Okay. And so, your vibrational range might be different than mine, but just in practical terms, what does that mean? It means that on a day-to-day basis, you have a range that you normally live every single day of your life. And here's the upper limit and here's the lower limit. So the lower limit for anybody would look like, oh my God, the world is falling apart. Everything sucks. It's the place where all of your deepest fears get triggered. For whatever happens, your lower limit is when you hear all that internal thoughts in your head is, I suck, I'm a failure, I'm never going to have what I want, right? That's the lower limit. And usually you get triggered down there by whatever happened during the day or whatever conversation is your triggers, right? And so I can imagine in your betrayal work, God forbid, when somebody has experienced that first place of betrayal, they are now in their lower limit. Mm-hmm. All the ghosts, that's the place where all the ghosts come out of the closet. All of that stuff from your childhood, all those things, come out from a closet. Your upper range is when you go on vacation, you've been dreaming about, it's the best vacation ever. You're higher than a kite. You love life. You can't imagine even remembering that you've ever had a bad day in your life, right? That's your upper limit. We don't normally live from that upper limit space. Believe it or not, my work is up here. It's above your upper limit. That's my work, is when I show people, if I can show you how to live up here, then this whole range is going to shift up.
And just so the listeners know what Debbie's doing, she's taking her hands and there's a gap in between. And what she just demonstrated was there's the gap of the low, there's the low, then there's a gap, then there's the high. And her work is taking you to the place to live, which is above your
upper limit. Yes, mm-hmm. your upper limit. And the thing is that every single person on the planet as a human being, you're born already wired with two different operating systems. And you have the operating system of your brain. Okay, that your brain's got the subconscious beliefs in it, and it's got your conscious mind of how you're operating. But your day-to-day life is operated by your subconscious mind. You think you're consciously making a choice, but you are not. And I know you do this work, right? And so you're not consciously making a choice. All your belief systems are choosing that for you, right? That's the operating system of, and I call that your ego path, just for a lack of better, that's the terminology I use. You were also born with a completely different operating system, which I call your soul path. And you can call it your soul path, your spiritual path, but that operating system bypasses any internal low vibrational range thinking. It doesn't have any of the blocks or limitations you have. It only activates and accesses that space that was above your upper limit. That was what I was talking about. And how do you know when you're accessing that? When you access your intuition, that's where it's coming from. Because it's not coming from your brain, right? Mm-hmm. When you have an intuitive thought, it is definitely not coming from your brain. You might hear it in your brain, but it is coming from a higher source. When you have a hunch, when you have a gut instinct, that's bypassing. When you feel called to do something that's fulfilling. I remember when we did our interview, Debbie, for the magazine, and you said something to the effect, I have to paraphrase, of when you had that massive betrayal, mm-hmm. and you decided to go get your PhD, mm-hmm. you thought to yourself, I know one thing, I'm taking everybody with me.
Yes.
Right? That didn't come from your brain.
No way.
That was the universe literally saying, now it's time. Like, now it's time for your purpose. So when you're operating in the conversation of purpose, when you're operating in the conversation of the vibration of like total inner peace and serenity,
Mhm.
When you're operating in a place of extreme joy and exuberance, you're moving into the vibrations that are bypassing any of that stuff that gets you stuck on a day-to-day life. That's high vibration living.
I love that. And I have to tell you, we met recently and you just called me on my own stuff. And and I love that because very few people do. And it was so interesting because here I am teaching, getting out of this stuck space and whatever. And I, at the time we met, I was in a stuck space. And I want to explain this to everybody because this is my own personal experience, and I'm sure you're experiencing some level of stuckness on your level. Here's what it looked like for me, so you can see I'm you're me. So here we were talking about this high vibrational living and all the great that comes from it, and I was blocked, and I left our conversation, and I've been blocked for really it felt like a couple of weeks, and then recently, so recently, I'm talking like 2 days ago, I realized, wait a second, why am I stuck? Why am I stuck? And I was completely in my ego self. And I said, and I realized that I'm keeping this fuzziness in place on purpose, because if I clear up the fuzziness, I'm going to have to make some big decisions. And the fuzziness was about making changes in my business. And I was so afraid, what if all of a sudden I become crazy, or I don't know what to do or whatever. And so I trusted, this was my soul. I trusted my soul, my spirit, whatever. Let's go there. Let's go there and see what we
Yeah.
find. Like, let's go on this journey. And I'll tell you, Debbie, I had so much fun because I realized that all what I was so afraid to see was only a higher, bigger, more expanded, more beautiful expression of what I'm doing now. And I was like,
Yeah,
this is
of
what I was
course.
afraid of.
Let
So,
me just tell you the biggest distinction, one of the big distinctions between that high vibration living on your soul space and your ego path is that your ego, your brain, especially your low vibration beliefs, will make up stories upon stories. And all the stories that it just makes up stories that you start to think are truth. And you're like, oh, that's why that happened. Or, oh, I've been working with people for 30 years. And when they have a breakthrough, a lot of times, I don't know if you've experienced this because I know you do transformational work too. A lot of times when somebody has a big breakthrough, like they just have this massive shift, their brain wants to pull them back and all of a sudden give them a story. Like they have this big breakthrough, and the next thing that's out of their mouth, they want to say, oh, no wonder why I did this, and this is what happened. And they start to extrapolate. And I say, no, stop. Like I stop them and go, we're going to put a period at the end of I had a massive breakthrough,
mhm.
because you now have moved into you talking about, oh, this is the story. You coming up with a story is your lower vibration thoughts wanting to pull you back.
Yeah. But do we do that so we understand what led to or what
You
created what we
don't.
have in
That's
the
the
first place?
point. You don't need to understand it. I've done enough work and had some massive shifts, even in my own life, that I have no idea what I just processed. And I don't care
Yeah.
because I had and that's the best thing that could happen, because then you can't make up a story.
Right.
You can't, because when you have when you have a huge energetic release, then you just have to basically, cry it out or just walk it off, or there's so much energy that moves. You have to take care of your body or go to sleep. So to integrate that newfound sort of vibration that you're carrying in your body.
Yeah.
So your logical mind wants evidence. It wants proof. It wants an understanding of why it went in pain. But you understand that in higher vibration spaces, why do you care?
Yeah. You know,
Why would you care? Does it matter? It doesn't matter. The
it's
only thing is, when you get on the other side of it, is to you also have perspective and learn from it, and say, oh, see that this never worked, never worked for me, but this does. That's an important thing.
yeah.
That's an important thing. But I always say, don't look for the dirt, because the universe is going to show you the dirt when you need to see it.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it's interesting because, and I'm always trying to get into the minds of my listeners, my viewers, and for the ones who are logical, and I know with me, I want to tie the logic to it. So on some level, that makes more sense to me. And we spoke about it. It's funny. And I was talking about letting go. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you do that? It's like I wanted to know the tools. Like, give me some tools, give me a roadmap and a process, and I can do it. And then it's so interesting because I found the letting go, it just happens. It just
Yes.
happens, and you just become different. Like as you said, when I was doing the study and enrolled in that PhD program, I just knew I was taking everybody with me. Like that was it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
for those of us who need the logic, what Debbie's saying is you don't need the logic. So be comfortable
That's
with the
the ego
uncomfortable.
space. That's
Yeah.
the ego space. Let me just say, you just gave an example for yourself. There was nothing logical about you getting a PhD program when you were in the middle of this, in the middle of building a
Mhm.
business, in the middle of taking care of, all of your kids and all the dogs and bi-coastal,
Yeah.
all of that, to go then and get a PhD program, probably not the best logical choice. So that your higher guidance, that the higher guidance that you get access to from a higher vibration of living is rarely logical until you're on the other side of it and you follow the guidance. And then you're like, it makes total sense.
Right.
You could go back on and go, I wouldn't give this up for the world. It was the best possible guidance I could have gotten.
Wow.
At the time, it seemed insanity. But now I've changed thousands of lives. I've created a system that didn't exist before I went on this journey. And this is work that's going to live on long, past
Yeah.
me being, here on the planet. Would you trade that for a pros and cons logic list?
Not at
So
all.
that's what I say to you when you say, well, for us with a logical mind, I have a very logical, I'm a left brain analytical by nature. I have a feeling if you put your human design next to mine, it's probably similar. I have this feeling ours is probably,
Yep.
really
I
similar.
bet.
So, but I've learned because I'm an energy worker, I've learned the power of energy work. It's an actual relief that you don't have to think, that you could just shut your brain off and get a massive result you could never have thought of getting.
I love that. And it's really true. And everybody think about this. Your best decisions they're never made when you're forcing them and trying. They're made
Yeah.
when you're taking that walk. The best decisions come to you in the shower when you're
Yeah.
in nature. It's
Yeah.
not, it's when we're letting go. Even,
Yeah.
it's such an
Yeah.
interesting thing, but yet I still try to force that whole, no, 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 but you need to come up with it now. And at some point, I guess I'll learn.
That's fear-based thinking. That's
Yeah.
just fear-based. That is fear-based thinking. That's not even high vibration thinking. Fear-based thinking is I have to, when you're in your ego space, we're trained. You understand that it comes to you honestly, Debbie, and it comes to me. Everybody, we're trained the same way because we're in school, no matter where you are in the world. If you're in a formal education, you're trained to always have a goal and set a goal, make a plan, work the plan. And that is based on you having to figure out the plan and you having to take the action.
Mhm.
So you've trained your brain that's the one, it's a one trick pony.
Mm.
That's it. You've got a one trick pony going on in your mind. You have to figure it out, especially when you're in pressure. The more internal pressure you feel, the more you have to figure it out. So for all of the people that go through your programs, when you're like raw, right? When you just first happen and you're in that space of devastation, what vibration are you in? You're in your lowest possible vibration. And that's the place where then that opens up the door to all the demons that led you to that point of betrayal.
Yeah.
It might not even be about the person or the situation that you experienced, but it opens a door when you're in those kinds of vibrations to all of that. And so you have to think to yourself, what is going to be the best solution? The mind that created that problem or the higher mind? The higher mind that is here, like your soul that came down to give you guidance to live the most powerful life you could lead.
Right.
That will take you, that's the solution to get you out of that space. So it will hand you I always say the solution either comes to you or through you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So when you're that raw and you say yes to a solution, that's all you have to know what it is. All you have to do is say yes. You were ready for the yes when we had that
Mhm.
conversation, when we met up. You were ready for the yes, or that wouldn't have come up in the conversation. And the solution came to you through me, right?
Yeah.
Not through you. And then a few days later, the next version of it came through you.
Yeah. It's just so interesting. But when we're in those dark, painful spaces, we're using our ego mind and we're only accessing, those thoughts and those beliefs and behaviors. And then, of course, we build more evidence around it. And
Yeah.
then we kind of stay there. That's everybody who's listening. That's our stage 3 out of the 5 stages
I
for
was just
betrayal
going
and
to say
breakthrough.
that I'm up close and personal because I've seen, your article. We're working on the article, getting it out there. And I was just going to say that I remember you really talking about that in
Mhm.
stage 3. And remember, I talked about stories, you make up stories.
Yeah.
And I remember you gave this example that when, like, that if a client came to you and she was all excited because she said, I'm now working out and I'm doing all this stuff. And she
Mhm.
was in stage 3 and
Yep.
she was thinking you were going to validate her and give her props. And you're like, oh no, 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 no. Because she had made up a story in her head, like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm now working out. I'm eating healthier, so I must be good.
Right.
And you're like, oh no, that's just that's you covering up so you don't have to go, move on to stage 4 where you do the deeper work.
What
And
Debbie's talking about here, just so for those who aren't familiar, I was talking about it, and I may have shared it on another podcast. This one PBT member, and we met, and she was so excited about her new health plan that she created, and she was talking about it. And she's like, "Isn't that great?" And I said, "It would be great if that's your problem. That's not what that's not what you're here for. You're here for the pain of your betrayal." And that she was almost using that as a distraction instead of
right.
doing the end
Right. So when you ask me about the left brain and the stories and we want to know how it works and everything like that,
Mhm.
that's a distraction. And when anything that's a distraction in your mind is a low vibration.
Yeah.
So
And
just now, I want you to think about that in the future when you're like, how does this work? Like, oh, I just had this massive breakthrough. Why did I have that? Why did I have to get here to this breakthrough? What caused it to begin with? And I'm like, look, if you need to know, and it's important in your transformation and in your healing process to know the answer, it will be shown to you. It will be shown to you. But after you have the transformation, it'll either come to you in a year from now, and all of a sudden you'll have this big awareness, but there won't be any story around it. But right after you have a transformation, it is the most vulnerable place you can be
right.
because your brain will want to slingshot you back to where you were.
And as you're saying that, the first thing that came to mind for me is I think I do that personally because I'm not used to it being easy. I'm not used to it being just like, oh, this happened and this transformation happened. It's almost like that would be too easy. So if I come up with all my reasons and all my justifications and all my how it happened, it's almost like,
Yeah.
okay, you get to live in this new space now because you just put
Yeah.
the work in figuring out how you got here. Does that make
Well,
sense?
my response to that is if you were to share your work, which you do, right? And you get to this place where when you have a transformation, it's easy. How many people want to buy that?
Yeah.
Right? Why would you embrace that is a gift that you like, that you've gotten to that place of conscious awareness
Right.
that it is easy for you,
Yeah.
right? And like embrace that and go, oh yay, yay me.
You're right. And it's
That's
like
it.
I said, it's only because
Don't turn away that gift because
right.
that is a gift,
And it
right?
is a gift. And it's so interesting because
Yeah.
I was talking to my daughter just yesterday, and she was reminding me of, Mom, do you remember when, because I've done Thanksgiving over 30 years, and it's my big holiday, and I'm cooking for days and days and days. And
Yes.
I remember one Thanksgiving sitting on the couch, and I was like, it just felt so easy this year. Wow, did I forget to make this one thing? Or what was wrong with it? And she just started laughing at me. She goes, Mom, you know this. It's just easy. And it was so funny because it was so hard for me to accept that it could be easy. And I'm sharing that because I know, dear listeners and viewers, you're like me. Some of you are just like me out there,
Yeah.
and it can
Yeah.
be easy. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
retraining of the mind, just believing that it can be whatever. But it's worth it. It's really worth it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the four forms of higher guidance. I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your higher guidance shows up in different ways. And sometimes I think people just sort of overlook, you know what I mean? Like you even said, I'm just going to overlook. Something just happened. I have this gift. Like I've got it down to a science where it's now easy. There's something wrong. I must make it hard, right? And I think that's sometimes what we do when something comes to you or through you easily. You don't realize you've got something called your soul that came down with you, specifically you in this lifetime. Like it specifically came here for you. And its purpose is for you to live the highest vibration life, which means you've activated the most power inside of you could actually access. But the way it communicates to you, it comes to you in different forms to keep giving you a message, right? So let's go through a few of those forms, right? So for me, there's various forms. One is I will get a direct message in my head, just a direct message, and it just lands. And I'm like, yep. And I just follow it. But it wasn't something I had been thinking about previous to that moment in time. So you're getting that would be an intuition. So one form is an intuition. Then the distinction is an intuition feels like it's an immediate hit on an immediate situation.
Mm-hmm.
Got it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, intuition means, you might call it a gut instinct. You might call it a hunch. You might hear words in your head. You might, right? So, but it's immediate direction. So that might look like turn left now when you think you're supposed to turn right,
Mm-hmm.
or it might go absolutely not. There's a massive no, do not go out with that person, do not do this.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect in your work, Debbie, that there have been many stories of people that said, I saw the signs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I saw the signs and I ignored them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, something this person said or did. And I thought, huh. And I even heard in my head, don't do it. And I ignored it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is always, 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 always the right guidance. So that's one way is your intuitive. The other one comes from what I would call higher guidance, where it's coming from your inner knowingness. And everybody experiences your inner knowingness where it's absolute truth. Okay. So an intuitive thought would have been go get a PhD program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Higher guidance is I'm taking everybody with me.
Mm-hmm.
That was within you, like a decision. I'm taking that was higher guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the distinction?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. So inner knowingness is it's one of your superpowers on your soul path. It's one of your superpowers that does not exist on your ego path. It's really important to understand that. Your logical brain needs logic behind something.
Mm-hmm.
It needs a story. It needs to have the dots connected. It needs to, right? Your inner knowingness connects dots at a level that you don't have to know. It just comes through you. And it's like, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that would be, sort of your inner knowingness. The other way is that when you have a thought, you just put a thought in your head and you're like, wouldn't it be great if I had this? You just put it out there. You're not attached to it. And all of a sudden, it just shows up. Right? Have you ever had that happen?
Oh
Right? You
yeah.
just had a thought
Definitely.
and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? I just saw this program on blank, blank, blank. And I'm like, wouldn't that be cool if I had that in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, your friend comes over and gives you something, the exact thing that you were talking about, you were looking at on the TV the day before.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the universe sends you like messengers all the time. you asked for me as the messenger for whatever reason. I don't normally just start calling people out on their stuff. That is not what I do. That
I
is
asked for it.
yeah, must have asked for it because I also get guided on whether I should say something or not. So I must have been guided to say something because I know a lot of people, when they're talking about things. I'm not on duty 24/7. That's my work. So when I'm out socializing and having a cup of tea with somebody, that is not what I'm doing. So it must have been in the context that you would ask, I got a download and you asked for that. So that the third way is you get messengers. So I know this is a really common one. Have you ever had somebody say something to you like, Debbie, you should do this? And you're like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then just, let it go. And then 2 days later, a completely unrelated person says the exact same thing to you. Like they don't even know each other. And you're like, okay, that's weird. And then it happens a third time.
It's always
You
three.
have to,
By the third time, I'm like, that's it. Looking into this.
A lot of times it comes in threes unless you're smart enough to recognize it the first time. But it's the universe literally trying to give you a message, and it's giving you the message in different forms, right? Different people. You have to pay attention to that. It is saying now is the time.
Yeah.
Now is the time, right? So that would be, another form that it's showing up. And then I don't, this is the fourth one for me is it's a non sequitur where all of a sudden you find without any thought process, okay, not direct hit, not go do this. You just start doing something.
Yeah.
And you're like, why am I even doing this? But you just find yourself doing something, or all of a sudden you're online researching something. And you had no previous thought around that. So all of these are ways that the universe and your soul give you guidance, and it's never wrong.
Yeah.
It's never wrong.
I can see examples in each of those. And it's so interesting because this stuff happens to us all the time. Are we going to pay attention to it or are we not? Debbie, what do you want to make sure everyone knows as we wrap up?
Well, in the context of the work that you're doing, I think we didn't really talk about this, but I think I'd like to leave with this, that wherever, I know by the time somebody starts your program and where they end up, they're a different version of themselves, right?
Correct.
They're a completely different version of themselves. I think what I'd like to leave with is that when you're living in a higher vibration, that's what you're doing is you're activating already, consciously choosing before you get entangled into all this stuff, all this stuff happening in your life. You're consciously choosing that higher vibration version of yourself. And it's always available to you, no matter where you are in your life. That higher vibration version is just sitting waiting for you to be there. And it's there. It's already there. You don't have to become that person.
Right.
My work shows you literally how to get there without having to become and do I can get you there in minutes into that vibration. But the evidence, but I want you to know is I've been doing this for 30 years. Those high vibration versions. So that version that you're taking them to process, that version couldn't have become that version if it wasn't already waiting for them.
Exactly. And to summarize in our language, that's the stage 5 version of you. So Debbie, where do we go to learn more about you and the beautiful work you do?
Okay, so if they want to know more about me personally and my work, they go to debbielynngrace.com. And if you want to know about the magazine, if you're highly sensitive, then I highly recommend the magazine. That's sensitivelivingmagazine.com.
Beautiful. And we'll have everything in the show notes. Debbie, my friend, I want to thank you so much for your wisdom, for your time. I know so many people gained so much value from what you shared today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
What a powerful conversation. Debbie reminded us that living a high vibration life isn't about chasing perfection. It's about aligning with the best version of ourselves. Stay in touch with her by going to debbielynngrace.com, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. Getting into alignment accesses your superpower. And when you learn to honor that gift, your healing and your purpose expands beyond anything your ego could have ever planned for. If this episode resonated, please share it with someone who may need this message today. And of course, if we can help you move through your betrayal, because it's in stages 4 and 5 where you become that highest and best version of you, just go to thepbtinstitute.com. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time. And here's to your breakthrough.